Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood at the window of her office and looked out at the stars. The Citadel of Unity floated in the darkness of space, a massive station that circled a dying star. 347 species sent their representatives here. They made laws. They signed treaties. They decided the fate of worlds. And somewhere in this great machine of galactic politics, humanity was trying to find its place. 50 years. That was how long humans had been members of the Galactic Concord. 50 years since the first alien ship appeared above Earth. 50 years since humanity learned they were not alone. In the grand history of the galaxy, 50 years was nothing. A blink, a heartbeat. The elder races had existed for tens of thousands of years. Some had been traveling between stars when humans were still living in caves. Elena turned away from the window and sat down at her desk. The office was small. That was intentional. Humanity got a small office, a single vote in the assembly, and limited rights to trade and colonize. They were the youngest species in the Concord. They were expected to be grateful for what they received. She picked up a data tablet and looked at the reports that had come in during the night. Her jaw tightened as she read them. Another colony attacked. The settlement on Kepler 442b had been raided 3 days ago. 47 dead. Buildings burned. Supplies stolen. The official report blamed pirates. It always blamed pirates. Elena had read dozens of these reports over the past 2 years. Human merchant ships disappeared in deep space. Frontier colonies were attacked and burned. Scientists on research missions never came home. And every time humanity filed a complaint with the Concord, the response was the same. Under review. Requires investigation. Please be patient. Patience. The elder races loved that word. They used it whenever humanity asked for more trade rights. They used it when humans requested permission to colonize new worlds. They used it when human ships were destroyed and human people died. A soft chime announced a visitor. Elena looked up as her assistant, a young man named David, entered the room. Ambassador, the Thalassian delegate is here to see you, David said. Elena nodded. Send him in. The Thalassians were tall beings with blue-gray skin and large dark eyes. They moved slowly and spoke carefully. When humanity first joined the Concord, the Thalassians had volunteered to be their mentors. They taught humans the rules of galactic society. They explained the complex web of treaties and agreements. They smiled and called humanity a promising species. Delegate Voran entered the office and lowered his head in greeting. His robes were silver and blue, the colors of his people. Ambassador Vasquez, he said, I hope this day finds you well. It finds me busy, Elena replied. Another colony was attacked. 47 of my people are dead. Voran made a sound that might have been sympathy. Yes, I heard about this. A terrible tragedy. Pirates grow bolder every year. Pirates. Elena let the word hang in the air. That is what the reports say. The Concord takes these matters seriously, Voran said. I am sure the Security Council will investigate. They have been investigating for 2 years. They have found nothing. Voran spread his hands in a gesture of helplessness. These things take time. The galaxy is vast. Criminals are difficult to catch. Humanity must be patient. There was that word again. Patient. Elena felt anger rise in her chest, but she kept her face calm. She had learned long ago to hide her emotions in these meetings. Of course, she said. Humanity is always patient. After Voran left, Elena sat alone in her office for a long time. She thought about the dead colonists on Kepler 442b. She thought about the merchant ships that vanished without a trace. She thought about 50 years of waiting, asking, and being told to be patient. Her computer chimed with an incoming message. The encryption was military grade. The sender was Admiral Chen, head of Earth's Defense Council. Elena opened the message and read it 3 times to make sure she understood. The intelligence teams had found something. After months of searching, they had captured a damaged drone from one of the attacks on human ships. The drone was not built by pirates. It was built by the Creeth Collective, one of the elder races of the Concord. But that was not the worst part. The drone contained communication logs, orders, mission reports, and those communications showed something that made Elena's blood turn cold. The attacks on humanity were not random. They were not the work of criminals. They were organized, they were planned, and they were approved by members of the Concord's own High Council. Elena read the attached files. The elder races had a name for what they were doing. They called it the pruning. It was an ancient practice, used against species that grew too fast and became a threat to the established order. The Vorathi hegemony had used it. The Kreeth Collective had used it. Others had helped or stayed silent. For 2 years, they had been quietly destroying humanity's expansion. Burning colonies, killing merchants, sending humans a message: stay small, stay weak, or be destroyed. Elena felt something change inside her. The anger she had controlled for so long burned hotter than ever before. But beneath the anger, there was something else. A cold, clear determination. She opened a new communication channel to Earth. Admiral Chen appeared on her screen. His face was hard, his eyes tired. "You read the files," he said. It was not a question. "I read them. The President has called an emergency meeting. The Defense Council, the Science Ministry, everyone who matters. We have been preparing for something like this for a long time, Ambassador. We hoped we were wrong. We hoped the galaxy was better than this." He paused. "We were not wrong." Elena nodded slowly. "What do you need from me? Stay where you are. Keep smiling at the delegates. Let them think nothing has changed. In 2 weeks, the Grand Assembly meets for its centennial session. Every major species will send their highest representatives." Admiral Chen leaned forward. "That is when we move. What exactly are we going to do?" The Admiral's face showed no emotion, but his eyes burned with the same fire Elena felt in her own heart. "We are going to show them what happens when they underestimate humanity." The call ended. Elena sat in silence as the stars turned slowly outside her window. For 50 years, humanity had played by the rules. They had been polite. They had been patient. They had trusted the system to protect them. That trust was gone now, burned away like the colonies the elder races had destroyed. In 2 weeks, the galaxy would learn what humans were capable of when they stopped being patient. In 2 weeks, everything would change. Elena opened her calendar and marked the date of the Grand Assembly. Then she began to prepare. Far away, on 100 human worlds, others were preparing too. Ships were being loaded, messages were being sent, plans that had waited years were finally being put into motion. The elder races had lived for thousands of years. They had seen countless species rise and fall. They thought they knew everything about the galaxy and everyone in it. They were wrong about humanity. They had always been wrong, and soon, they would understand their mistake. Captain Marcus Chen gripped the arms of his command chair as his ship shook from another explosion. Warning lights flashed red across the bridge, smoke filled the air. Half his crew was dead or injured, and the enemy was still firing. "Shields at 12%, his tactical officer shouted. "We cannot take much more of this." Marcus looked at the view screen. 3 ships surrounded the ESS Defiance. They were fast, heavily armed, and they had come out of nowhere. One moment the Defiance was on a routine patrol near the Kepler corridor. The next moment, death had come for them. "Return fire," Marcus ordered. "Everything we have." The Defiance was a warship, one of humanity's best. Her weapons were powerful, her crew was trained, and her captain refused to die in the darkness between stars. The ship's guns roared, and one of the enemy vessels exploded in a ball of fire. But the other 2 kept attacking. "Captain, I am detecting something strange," the sensor officer said. "One of the enemy ships is launching a drone. It is heading toward us." Marcus watched the small object fly toward his ship. It was not a missile. It was not a bomb. It was something else. "Shoot it down," he said. The point defense guns fired, and the drone broke apart, but it did not explode. Instead, pieces of it bounced off the Defiance's hull. "What was that?" Marcus asked. Before anyone could answer, the 2 remaining enemy ships turned and fled. They jumped into faster-than-light travel and disappeared. Just like that, the attack was over. Marcus sat in his damaged chair and tried to understand what had happened. Why did they run? Why did they send that strange drone? Nothing made sense. "Search the hull," he ordered. "Find every piece of that drone and bring it to the engineering bay. I want to know what it was." 3 hours later, Marcus stood in engineering and looked at the broken pieces of alien technology spread across a table. His chief engineer, a woman named Yuki Tanaka, was studying them with focused eyes. "It is Kreeth design," she said quietly. Marcus felt his stomach drop. The Kreeth Collective was one of the oldest and most powerful species in the galaxy. They were a hive mind, millions of individual creatures connected to a single consciousness. They had been part of the Galactic Concord for over 10,000 years. Are you sure? He asked. I am sure. Look at these circuit patterns. Look at the metal composition. This is Kreth technology. There is no doubt. But the Kreth are members of the Concord. They signed the same treaties we did. Why would they attack a human ship? Yuki did not answer. Instead, she pointed to a small component in the center of the drone's remains. This is a communication module. It is damaged, but I might be able to recover some data from it. Do it. It took Yuki 6 hours to pull information from the damaged module. When she finished, she called Marcus back to engineering. Her face was pale. You need to see this, she said. Marcus read the recovered communications. Orders from Kreth Command. Coordinates for human patrol routes. Instructions to attack and destroy, but leave no survivors. And repeated references to something called the pruning. What is the pruning? Marcus asked. Yuki pulled up more files. I searched our intelligence database. The pruning is an old practice, very old, when a young species grows too fast. When they become a threat to the established order, the elder races work together to slow them down. They destroy colonies. They kill merchants. They make the young species afraid to expand. Marcus read the files again. The attacks on human ships were not random. They were planned. They were coordinated. And they were approved by the highest levels of the Kreth government. But the Kreth were not acting alone. The communications mentioned other species. The Vorathi hegemony. The Syndicate of Ral. 4 other elder races whose names Marcus recognized from diplomatic briefings. All of them were working together. All of them were hunting humanity. How long has this been happening? Marcus asked. Based on these files, at least 2 years, maybe longer. 2 years. 2 years of attacks blamed on pirates. 2 years of complaints ignored by the Concord. 2 years of humanity being told to be patient while their people died. Marcus sent the information to Earth immediately. Within hours, he received a response from Admiral Chen himself. The Defiance was ordered to return home at maximum speed. The information they carried was too important to risk. As his damaged ship limped toward Earth, Marcus thought about what he had learned. The elder races saw humanity as a threat, not because humans were violent, not because humans were evil, simply because humans grew too fast. They learned too quickly. They adapted too well. The elder races had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They had built their power on control and stability, and humanity, with its energy and ambition, threatened everything they had built. So they decided to cut humanity down before it could grow too tall. Back on Earth, the information from the Defiance started a storm of activity. Intelligence officers analyzed the data. Military commanders updated their plans. Scientists worked day and night on projects that had been kept secret for years, because humanity had not been completely foolish. Even as they smiled and signed treaties and played the role of grateful newcomers, some humans had been preparing for the worst. They had built hidden shipyards in systems the Concord did not monitor. They had made secret alliances with other species who suffered under elder rule. They had reverse-engineered alien technology that they were supposedly too primitive to understand. Ambassador Vasquez received daily briefings on the preparations. She watched as humanity's true strength slowly revealed itself. The galaxy thought humans were weak. The galaxy thought humans were young and helpless. The galaxy was wrong. But Elena also received other reports. Reports about species who were not part of the pruning. The Thalassians, humanity's so-called mentors, had known about the conspiracy. They had not participated, but they had not warned humanity either. Their silence made them guilty. Other species had stayed quiet too. Some out of fear. Some out of indifference. Some because they simply did not care what happened to the young species from a small planet called Earth. Elena felt her anger grow cold and hard. The galaxy had shown humanity its true face. A face of cruelty and contempt. A face that smiled while plotting murder. In 1 week, the Grand Assembly would meet. Every major species would send their leaders, and humanity would show the galaxy its true face in return. The preparations continued. Ships were moved into position. Ambassadors were quietly recalled from alien worlds. Human scientists and workers on exchange programs were brought home. The movement was slow and careful. The elder races noticed nothing. They were too confident in their power, too certain that the young species would never dare to challenge them. They had ruled the galaxy for so long that they had forgotten what it was like to be afraid. They would remember soon. On the day before the Grand Assembly, Elena received a final message from Earth. The president's words were simple. Ambassador Vasquez, you have our full authority. Speak for all of humanity. Make them understand. Elena read the message and then deleted it. She looked out at the stars one last time. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, the galaxy would learn the truth. Humanity had come to the stars with hope and wonder. They had wanted to be part of something greater than themselves. They had trusted the Concord to treat them fairly. That trust had been betrayed. And betrayal had consequences. The elder races thought they were pruning a weed. They did not realize they had been sharpening a blade. Tomorrow, that blade would cut deep. Elena closed her eyes and prepared herself for what was coming. There would be no going back after tomorrow. No more patience. No more playing nice. Humanity would finally show the galaxy who they really were, and the galaxy would tremble. The Grand Assembly Hall was the largest room Elena had ever seen. A massive dome of crystal and metal rose hundreds of meters above the floor. Thousands of seats filled the chamber, arranged in circles that climbed toward the distant ceiling. Light from the dying star outside filtered through the crystal walls, painting everything in shades of gold and red. Representatives from 347 species filled those seats. Some were tall and thin, some were short and wide, some floated in tanks of water, some existed as clouds of gas held together by magnetic fields. The diversity of life in the galaxy was on full display. At the center of the hall stood the speaker's platform. This was where the High Arbiter stood when addressing the assembly. Today, that platform belonged to Thalos, a Vorathi elder who had led the Concord for over 300 years. The Vorathi were beings of living crystal. Their bodies caught the light and scattered it into rainbows. They were beautiful and ancient, and they considered themselves the wisest species in existence. Thalos stood on the platform like a statue carved from diamond, his voice amplified to fill the massive chamber. Welcome, delegates, to the centennial session of the Grand Assembly, Thalos said. His voice was deep and musical. For 100 years, we have gathered in this hall to celebrate our unity. 100 years of peace. 100 years of cooperation. 100 years of progress. Elena sat in the human section with her delegation, 12 humans in formal dress, representing a species of 8 billion. Their section was small, placed near the back of the hall, far from the powerful elder races. This was intentional. The seating arrangement reminded everyone of their place in the galactic order. Elena listened to Thalos speak about unity and cooperation, and she felt nothing but cold anger. Unity, cooperation. These words meant nothing. They were lies told by powerful species to keep weaker ones in line. Thalos continued his speech for nearly an hour. He talked about the great achievements of the Concord. He talked about the importance of patience and tradition. He praised the elder races for their wisdom and leadership. When he finally finished, he asked if any delegate wished to address the assembly. Elena stood up. A ripple of surprise moved through the hall. The human delegate was asking to speak? At the centennial session? It was unusual, almost unheard of. Young species were expected to listen and learn, not to speak at important gatherings. Thalos hesitated for a moment, then gestured toward the platform. The assembly recognizes the delegate from Earth. Elena walked down the long path to the speaker's platform. She could feel thousands of eyes watching her. Some were curious. Some were amused. Many were simply bored. The humans probably wanted to thank the Concord for accepting them. How charming. How predictable. Elena reached the platform and looked out at the assembled delegates. She took a deep breath and began to speak. 50 years ago, humanity joined the Galactic Concord. We were told that membership meant protection. We were told that the treaties we signed would keep our people safe. We believed these promises. Her voice was calm and clear. The translation systems carried her words to every corner of the hall. In the past 2 years, 17 human colonies have been attacked. 43 merchant vessels have been destroyed. Over 3,000 human citizens have died. Each time, we were told that pirates were responsible. Each time, we were told to be patient while the Concord investigated. Elena paused and looked directly at the Vorathi section. Thalos stood motionless, his crystal body catching the light. We were patient, and while we waited, our people died. So we conducted our own investigation. She pressed a control on the platform, and holographic displays appeared throughout the hall. Documents, communications, coordinates, the evidence humanity had gathered over months of dangerous intelligence work. These are orders from the Kreth Collective Military Command. They contain coordinates for human shipping routes and instructions to attack without leaving survivors. A wave of noise swept through the assembly. Delegates leaned forward in their seats. The Kreth section, filled with insectoid beings connected to their hive mind, went completely still. These are communications between the Varathi hegemony and the Syndicate of Ral, discussing the timing and targets of attacks on human colonies. More noise. Louder now. Delegates were talking over each other, pointing at the holographic evidence. These are records of payments made to mercenary groups, payments authorized by members of this very council. The elder races have a name for what they are doing. They call it the pruning. Elena's voice grew harder. The pruning is the systematic destruction of species that grow too fast, species that threaten the power of the elders, species like humanity. Thalos finally moved. These accusations are outrageous. This evidence is clearly fabricated. The assembly will not tolerate such. I am not finished, Elena said, her voice cut through his like a blade. For 2 years, the Varathi hegemony, the Kreth Collective, the Syndicate of Ral, and 4 other species have been conducting a secret war against humanity. They have burned our colonies. They have killed our people. They have violated every treaty they signed. She pointed at the Thalassian section. And others have known about it. The Thalassians, our supposed mentors, knew about the pruning. They said nothing. They watched our people die and stayed silent. The Thalassian delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Delegate Voran, who had told Elena so many times to be patient, could not meet her eyes. We trusted the Concord, Elena said. We trusted the treaties. We trusted that the galaxy would treat us fairly. That trust is gone. She straightened her shoulders and spoke the words she had traveled so far to deliver. The United Earth government hereby withdraws from the Galactic Concord. We declare every treaty signed under false pretenses to be null and void. Every trade agreement. Every territorial concession. Every restriction placed upon our species. As of this moment, humanity answers to no authority but its own. The hall exploded into chaos. Delegates jumped from their seats. Voices rose in anger and shock. The Varathi section glowed brighter as Thalos tried to restore order. The Kreth hive mind buzzed with agitation. But Elena was not finished. You thought we were weak, she said, her voice rising above the noise. You thought we were young and foolish. You thought you could destroy us quietly, and no one would ever know. She looked around the hall at the hundreds of species who had watched humanity suffer and done nothing. You were wrong. Elena turned and walked away from the platform. Behind her, the human delegation stood as one. 12 humans among thousands of aliens. 12 humans who represented a species that had finally stopped being patient. They walked toward the exit. The chaos in the hall grew louder. Delegates shouted for them to stop. Thalos demanded that they return to their seats. Guards moved to block the doors. Elena did not slow down. She did not look back. The guards hesitated. They had never seen anything like this. No species had ever walked out of the Grand Assembly. No species had ever dared to challenge the elder races so directly. In that moment of hesitation, the human delegation reached the doors and passed through them. The doors closed behind them, cutting off the noise of the assembly. Elena kept walking. Her delegation followed. They moved through the corridors of the Citadel toward the docking bay where their ship waited. Behind them, the galaxy was changing. The old order, maintained for thousands of years, had just received its first crack. The elder races had ruled through fear and control for so long that they had forgotten what resistance looked like. They would remember now. As Elena boarded her ship and gave the order to depart, she felt no fear. Only certainty. Humanity had made its choice. There was no turning back. The ship pulled away from the Citadel and jumped into faster-than-light travel. Earth was waiting. The future was waiting. And the elder races were about to learn that the species they tried to destroy was more dangerous than they ever imagined. The assembly continued without the humans. Voices argued and accused. Alliances shifted. Fear spread like a disease. The evidence Elena had presented could not be ignored. The lies could not be hidden anymore. For the first time in centuries, the elder races felt something they had almost forgotten. Uncertainty, doubt, and beneath those feelings, growing stronger with each passing moment, was fear. The galaxy would never be the same. The galaxy waited for humanity to collapse. Every expert predicted the same thing. Without Concord trade routes, human colonies would starve. Without access to shared technology, human industry would fail. Without the protection of collective security treaties, human worlds would be easy targets for anyone who wanted to attack them. The elder races had controlled the galaxy for thousands of years. They knew how things worked. A young species could not survive alone. It was impossible. 1 month passed. Human colonies did not starve. 2 months passed. Human industry did not fail. 3 months passed. No one attacked human worlds. And slowly, the galaxy began to realize that something was very wrong. High Arbiter Thalos stood in his private chamber and reviewed the reports. His crystal body flickered with colors that showed his confusion and growing fear. "How is this possible?" he asked. His advisor, a younger Varathi named Selin, projected data into the air. "The humans have been preparing for this. For decades, apparently. Preparing. How? We monitored their shipyards. We tracked their fleet movements. We knew exactly how many ships they had. We knew about the ships in their registered systems," Selin corrected. "We did not know about the hidden shipyards. The data showed locations scattered across the outer rim of the galaxy. Systems that the Concord had marked as empty. Systems that nobody bothered to visit. In those forgotten places, humanity had been building shipyards, factories, research stations, a second infrastructure, completely hidden from Concord eyes. That is not all," Selin continued. "They have made alliances." "Alliances? With whom?" "The Valari Swarm, the Drifter clans, the Monolith Collective. Species that we dismissed as unimportant. Species that we pruned in the past." Thalos felt something cold move through his crystal heart. The Valari were insects, numerous but primitive. The Drifters were nomads without a homeworld. The Monoliths were silicon-based beings who communicated through vibrations. None of them had ever been important. But together, united under human leadership, they represented hundreds of worlds. Billions of beings. Resources that humanity could use. "When did they make these alliances?" Thalos demanded. "Years ago. Perhaps decades. We do not know exactly. The Vorathi hegemony had ruled the galaxy by keeping the younger species divided. Alone, each young species was weak. Together, they might be strong. So the elder races made sure they never came together. Humanity had found a way around that. While smiling and signing treaties, they had been building bridges to other oppressed species. While pretending to be weak, they had been gathering strength. Thalos made a decision. Send a diplomatic envoy to Earth. Offer to negotiate. Perhaps we can still salvage this situation. 3 days later, the Vorathi diplomatic ship arrived at the edge of human space. It was met by a human destroyer. "This is the ESS Guardian to Vorathi vessel. You are not authorized to enter human territory. Turn around and leave." The Vorathi captain was stunned. "We carry a diplomatic envoy. We have peaceful intentions. Human space is closed to Vorathi ships. Turn around and leave. This is your final warning." For a long moment, the Vorathi captain considered pushing forward. The hegemony did not accept refusal. The hegemony went where it pleased. But the human destroyer was not alone. More ships appeared on sensors. 10 destroyers, 5 cruisers, a carrier group with fighters already launched. The Vorathi turned around and left. When the report reached Thalos, he did not speak for a long time. Finally, he said, "They refused us." A young species refused the Vorathi hegemony. It had not happened in 3,000 years. Meanwhile, the Kreeth Collective tried a different approach. If diplomacy would not work, perhaps economics would. They declared sanctions against any species that traded with humanity. They expected the galaxy to fall in line. The galaxy did not fall in line. Human merchants had been very busy over the past decades. They had positioned themselves in critical supply chains. Rare minerals needed for faster-than-light engines, biological compounds used in Kreeth nutrition, information networks that connected distant parts of the galaxy. When the Kreeth declared sanctions, they discovered that they needed humanity more than humanity needed them. Worlds that depended on human trade refused to join the sanctions. Species that had suffered under Kreeth rule saw an opportunity to break free. The hive mind, which had controlled its people for millennia, began to hear dissenting voices from within. Individual Kreth segments, normally obedient to the collective will, started to question. Why were they fighting humanity? What had humans done to deserve the pruning? Was the collective making a mistake? For the first time in recorded history, the Kreth hive mind was not united. On the citadel of unity, the Concord fractured. Species that had stayed silent during the pruning now demanded answers. The evidence Elena had presented was analyzed and confirmed. The conspiracy was real. The Thalassians, shamed by their silence, made a choice. They began sharing information with human intelligence, secret codes, diplomatic channels, the locations of hidden Concord military bases. Everything they knew, they gave to humanity. Delegate Voran personally delivered a message to the human government. We cannot undo what was done. We can only try to make things right. Whatever you need, we will provide. Humanity accepted the information. They did not forgive. Not yet. Perhaps not ever. But they were practical people. Allies were useful, even imperfect ones. 6 months after humanity's withdrawal, Thalos called an emergency session of the High Council. The representatives of the 6 elder races gathered in a chamber that had seen countless such meetings over the millennia. This meeting was different. We are losing control, Thalos said. His voice was heavy with disbelief. The Kreth are fragmenting. The Syndicate of Ral has closed its borders. Half the minor species have stopped attending council sessions. The Concord is falling apart. The Kreth representative, a drone that spoke for the collective, twitched nervously. The humans have done something to our people. They have poisoned our unity. The humans have done nothing, said the Vorathi elder. Our own actions have created this crisis. The pruning was supposed to be secret. It was supposed to be subtle. Instead, it was exposed before the entire galaxy. Then we must act decisively, another elder said. Military force. Crush the humans before they grow stronger. Thalos shook his crystal head. You still do not understand. Look at the numbers. The humans have built a fleet that rivals our own. They have allies who will fight beside them, and they have something else. Something we have not had for a very long time. What? Purpose. Unity. A cause worth fighting for. Thalos looked around the table at the representatives of species that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. We have grown old and tired. We fight to maintain what we have. They fight for something new. That makes them dangerous in ways we cannot measure. The council debated for hours. They argued about military options, diplomatic options, economic options. They could not agree on anything. Finally, Thalos stood. I will go to the humans myself, not as the High Arbiter, not as a representative of the hegemony. As one person, seeking to understand another. The other elders were shocked. You cannot be serious. You would lower yourself to meet with these primitives? I would lower myself to save our civilization, Thalos replied. Because if we do not find a way to end this conflict, we will not survive it. He left the council chamber and began preparing for a journey he never thought he would make. A journey to meet the species his people had tried to destroy. A journey to find out if peace was still possible. Behind him, the elder races continued to argue. Their ancient alliances strained, their power weakened with each passing day, and across the galaxy, humanity continued to build, to grow, to prepare for whatever came next. The storm was coming, and when it arrived, the galaxy would never be the same. The Free Stellar Compact held its first official meeting in a station orbiting a young blue star. The station was new, built in just 4 months by a coalition of species working together. It was not as grand as the Citadel of Unity. It did not have crystal walls or ancient halls, but it was theirs, and that made it beautiful. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood at the center of the gathering chamber. Around her sat representatives from 23 species. The Valari swarm, with their gleaming compound eyes. The Drifter clans, who had finally found a home. The Monolith Collective, their silicon bodies humming with vibrations. And others. Species who had been dismissed as weak. Species who had suffered under the pruning. Species who had been waiting for a chance to be free. Humanity had given them that chance. 6 months ago we walked out of the Galactic Concord, Elena said. They told us we would fail. They told us we could not survive alone. But we were never alone. She gestured to the assembled delegates. Every species in this room was told the same thing. Stay small. Stay weak. Know your place. The elder races built their power on keeping us divided. They were afraid of what we might become if we worked together. Elena smiled. Now they know. The Free Stellar Compact was not built on the old rules. There were no elder species and younger species, no hierarchy based on how long a civilization had existed. Every member had an equal voice. Every species was respected as an equal partner. It was a radical idea. The elder races had never operated this way. They believed that power should belong to those who had held it the longest. They could not imagine any other system. Humanity could. Humanity had spent centuries fighting against kings and tyrants who believed they had a right to rule. The idea that all beings deserved equal dignity was not new to humans. It was the foundation of their civilization. Now they were sharing that idea with the galaxy. Not everyone welcomed the change. The Vorathi hegemony watched the compact grow with fear and anger. The Kreeth Collective, now fragmenting into independent segments, did not know how to respond. The old Concord still existed, but it was weaker every day. Species left to join the compact. Trade routes shifted. The balance of power in the galaxy was changing. 3 days after the compact's first meeting, Elena received an unexpected request. High Arbiter Thalos wanted to meet with her. Not officially, not publicly, just 2 individuals, talking in private. Elena agreed. They met on a small moon, far from both compact and conquered territory. A neutral place, a quiet place. Elena waited in a simple room with no guards and no weapons. When the door opened and Thalos entered, she saw something she never expected to see in a Vorathi: uncertainty. Thalos was ancient. His crystal body bore patterns that showed thousands of years of history. He had led the Concord through challenges that Elena could not imagine. And yet, standing in this small room, he looked almost fragile. "Ambassador Vasquez," he said. "Thank you for agreeing to meet. High Arbiter, I was surprised by your request." Thalos moved to a chair and sat down slowly. "I am sure you were. We have not exactly been friendly, your species and mine. Your species tried to destroy us." "Yes." Thalos did not deny it. He did not make excuses. "We did." Silence filled the room. Elena waited. "I have ruled the Concord for 300 years, Thalos said. "In that time, I have seen many species rise and fall. Some grew strong and became valuable members of the galactic community. Others grew too fast and threatened the stability we had built. When that happened, we pruned them. We thought we were protecting the galaxy." "You were protecting your power," Elena said. Perhaps we convinced ourselves that our power and the galaxy's well-being were the same thing. It is easy to believe such lies when you have been telling them for thousands of years." Thalos looked at Elena with his strange crystal eyes. "When your species first appeared on our sensors, we were impressed. You had discovered faster than light travel, faster than any species we had ever recorded. Your technology was advancing at an incredible rate. Your population was growing. You had energy and ambition that we had not seen in millennia. And that scared you." "Yes. It scared us greatly." Thalos paused. "We tried to contain you. We gave you limited rights and restricted your expansion. When that was not enough, we began the pruning. We thought we could slow you down. We thought we could keep you small and manageable. You killed thousands of our people." "We did. And I am not here to ask for forgiveness. I do not think forgiveness is possible for what we have done. I am here to ask a different question." Elena leaned forward. "What question? What kind of galaxy do you want to build?" The question surprised her. She had expected threats. She had expected demands. She had not expected this. Thalos continued. "The Concord is dying. The order we maintained for millennia is collapsing. Whether I like it or not, your compact will shape the future of the galaxy. So I need to know, will you become what we were? Will you rule through fear and control? Will you crush anyone who threatens your power?" Elena thought about the question for a long moment. She thought about the colonies that had been burned, the ships that had been destroyed, the people she had known who were now dead. She thought about revenge. It would feel good to make the elder races suffer, to make them feel the fear and pain they had caused, to become the new rulers of the galaxy and crush anyone who opposed them. Humanity had the strength to do it. The compact was growing every day. The elder races were divided and weak. Victory was within reach. But what would that victory mean? "We did not leave the Concord to become the new oppressors," Elena said slowly. "We left because we wanted something better. A galaxy where every species can grow and thrive. A galaxy where strength is measured by what you build, not what you destroy. She looked at Thalos directly. We are not here to conquer. We are here to make sure every species has the chance to reach their full potential, including yours. Thalos was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than Elena had ever heard it. You are different from us, from any species we have ever encountered. You had every reason to seek revenge. Instead, you seek justice. You could rule the galaxy through force. Instead, you build coalitions based on equality. He stood up slowly. I think, perhaps, we were right to fear you, but not for the reasons we thought. We feared you would destroy us. Instead, you might actually change us. And change is what we fear most of all. The meeting ended without any formal agreements. No treaties were signed. No promises were made. But something had shifted. The High Arbiter of the Concord had looked into the future and seen that the old ways were ending. What came next would depend on choices that had not yet been made. Elena returned to the compact and continued her work. More species joined every month. Trade networks expanded. Scientific cooperation flourished. The galaxy was slowly becoming something new. 1 year after humanity left the Concord, Elena stood on the bridge of a human ship as it approached a distant planet. The world was green and blue, much like Earth. Its people had just discovered radio technology. They were decades away from space travel. First contact protocols are ready, Ambassador, the captain said. Elena nodded. This moment had happened countless times before. Elder races arriving at young worlds, setting the terms, establishing control, deciding how much the newcomers would be allowed to grow. Humanity would do things differently. Open a channel, Elena said. The view screen showed the planet below. Somewhere on that world, beings were looking up at the stars and wondering if they were alone. People of this world, Elena said. We are the Free Stellar Compact. We come in peace and friendship. We are here not to rule you, but to welcome you. The stars are vast, and there is room for everyone. When you are ready, we will be here. As equals, as partners, as friends. She ended the transmission and looked out at the stars. The galaxy was still full of danger. The old Concord still had power. Conflict still waited in the future. Nothing was certain. But for the first time in a very long time, the galaxy had hope. Humanity had come to the stars as strangers. They had been tested by fear and betrayal. They had faced enemies who wanted to destroy them. And in the end, they had not become what their enemies feared. They had become something better, something new. The stars stretched out before them, infinite and full of possibility. And humanity walked among them, no longer alone, ready to face whatever came next. Together,